Well, it's not looking good at the moment. We've heard from the firefighters here, who also double up as the paramedics, that he was showing no vitals. He's been taken to hospital, and certainly eyewitnesses have said that he was unconscious after they heard what sounds like at least one shot, but some reporters are saying it sounds like two gunshots. So just recapping, Shinzo Abe, Japan's former Prime Minister and longest-serving Prime Minister, was giving a speech as part of a campaign trail. We have the upper house elections here in Japan coming up, and he was supporting one of his fellow Liberal Democratic Party nominees there. And during this speech, witnesses have heard one or two gunshot sounding noises. He has collapsed. One of the reporters for NHK, which is the public broadcaster of Japan, has reported seeing blood at the scene as well. And then he was obviously rushed to hospital. As I mentioned before, the last we have is that he was showing no vitals, but we haven't got any updates from when he was taken to hospital. Certainly very concerning news here in Japan. We know one man has now been detained, arrested by police. It looks like he'll be facing attempted murder charges.
James, that was a very swift arrest of that one person, wasn't it?
Certainly was. I mean, this happened at 11:30 local time, so that's around 12:30 your time in Sydney. And, this was, a campaign event. So there already was a fairly high police presence, as there would be in any kind of political event here, particularly that involving the former Prime Minister. So this has all happened very, very quickly in terms of getting that man detained. Now, really, the people of Japan will be holding their breath and hoping for some good news about the former Prime Minister. But as I mentioned before, so far it's not sounding good at all. So very concerning times here in Japan.
Can you give us a bit of context about gun violence in Japan and gun ownership laws?
Well, certainly, I mean, Japan's regarded as a very, very safe country. This is nothing like, for instance, the United States. So this will be a shock. You know, the gun violence is not something you hear about really at all in this country. It's regarded as a very safe country. So that's why this will be so concerning to the people, and obviously involving the former Prime Minister. So this is, no one expects these type of events, in the best or worst of times. But here in Japan, to have what may be an attempted assassination, that's just staggering.
As you told us a moment ago, Shinzo Abe was Japan's longest-serving Prime Minister. He resigned 2 years ago due to illness. Can you tell us about the public sentiment around his time as Prime Minister and also since?
Well, he's a bit of a grandfather of Japanese politics, given that he was the longest-serving Prime Minister here. So he has been very highly regarded here in Japan. And for his party, the question has always been about how the subsequent Prime Ministers we've had, we're on our second Prime Minister since then, how they could possibly fill the shoes that Shinzo Abe left behind. He was also seen as a great friend to Australia and to countries like Australia, to America. He's widely regarded as the person who came up with the idea of the Quad more than a decade ago, in fact, and that's now something we hear so much about. India, United States, Japan and Australia working together on many fronts, not just militarily. He's regarded as coming up with that idea as well. So he's regarded as I say, as quite a giant figure of Japanese politics, but this news will reverberate across the world because he was highly regarded in many countries, particularly there in Australia.
So highly regarded, and in a country where gun violence is low, this has to have come as a huge shock to everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always going to be some security presence at campaign trails like this. There'll obviously be questions now about how, someone could have carried out assuming that it is confirmed it's a gunshot and someone has shot him once or twice. Obviously, there'll be a thorough examination about what has happened here and what could have been done to possibly prevent this. But, as you say, this is really something there's no reason to expect something like this would happen in, really any country, but especially in Japan, considering how safe this place is. So, look, as I say, this is a very senior figure, some quite grim and worrying news about what has happened to the former Prime Minister. And now we're just seeing live pictures, for instance, of paramedics and police. They'll be combing the scene, no doubt. Some quite kind of concerned witnesses who have described these gunshot-sounding noises. Really, the only thing that's left now is getting some official confirmation what has actually happened and whether or not he's able to pull through.
James, this is of course breaking news. You're bringing us out of Japan. For viewers who are just joining us, can you recap for us what we know so far about what happened?
Certainly. Well, we know at 11:30 local time, the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was giving a campaign speech in Japan, and there are the upper house elections coming up not far from now, and he was supporting a fellow party nominee for the Liberal Democratic Party. That's the party that he's represented before. And during this speech he was given, we've heard what sounds like two gunshot sounding noises. That's what witnesses are reporting. That's what a journalist has reported for the public broadcaster NHK. They've reported that he collapsed, reports of seeing blood. And then we know that the firefighters, who also double up as the paramedics here, have said there were no vitals and he was taken unconscious to hospital. So that is really worrying news here and quite scary news. We also know that one man has been detained and it looks like he will be facing attempted murder charges. So at the moment, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, it looks like this might have been an assassination attempt against Shinzo Abe, who is a huge figure of Japanese politics, really a grandfather figure of Japanese politics and the longest serving Prime Minister, most recently serving from 2012 to 2020. So now we are really just waiting for confirmation of his condition from hospital. It's up to hospital, the health officials here, to declare if he is in fact deceased. But as I say before, very concerning news that firefighters said there was no vitals, that he was taken unconscious. So it's not looking good at the moment.
Yeah, we await news on his condition. North Asia correspondent James Oaten bringing us the latest there from Japan. Thank you, and we will check in again shortly.